Myoho Renge Kyo Nam Myoho Renge Kyo Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello everyone. Today we begin the second volume, book 2 if you will, of Nichiren Gosho. These are, if you don't already know, books that I put together of the compendium of Nichiren writings, some of which are under contention. But even so, I've collected as many as I can. I put them in an order that suited my alliteration and ability to, I hate using the word teach because I'm just sharing my research, and I'm trying to transmit the message and the meaning of the writings as Buddha Shakyamuni instructed us to do for people of my own time and age. And a lot of this hyperbole in the sutras as well as the Gosho, Nichiren is a great example of a student of Buddhism, which is what a monk is. And that's what we're trying to do, right? So he uses a lot of references to a lot of the writings, which is what we call scholarship. At any rate, this is the second book. There's some short ones and long ones, just like there was in the first book. And we've covered a lot of ground. Interestingly enough, these first two Goshos, they're kind of short, deal with very straightforward issues. These are more personal letters. They're not big teachings. They're just reinforcing Buddhist method, Buddhist thinking. And as a result, he refers to a lot of inculcated cultural stories, some of the deities like Hachiman and so forth. In Buddhism, all of those things are personifications of certain mental states or behavioral habits or tendencies of humans. I mean, this is what human beings have done since way before Buddhism, back to 12,000 years of Vedic signs and iconographies and so forth. We either tend to, human beings externalize, and a lot of the religions, for instance, of the world really are based on the human body. They may not be saying arm, leg, blah, 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 but they're a self-reflexive construct around the existence of being. And because it's tied to thingness, the body, or not body, which is the same thing, everything tends to get a little magical or mystical. But I say mystical a lot, and shout out to Mark Rhodes, who came up here yesterday. He drove a couple 100 miles to come to my school, and sat down with me, spent almost 5 hours here. We had tremendous dialogue, went all over the place. I don't remember all of it, but I remember that it was tremendously engaging. He's a wonderful young man. Thank you, Mark. I hope we get together more, if we can. But things like what are coming up in these short Goshos as I reread them, perhaps because it's fresh on my mind. We did talk about the expedient means, or skillful devices, or skillful means, or it's known all sorts of different translations or words to try to capture the idea that in teaching Buddhism, in teaching, that's not really right, is it? We don't teach Buddhism, we teach each other. The teaching is a participatory thing that happens with words, sound, and sight in order to derive meaning beneath the superfluous and superficial observations, if you will, tactile observations, palpable observations of life, of our experience, right? That's what dialogue is. We're trying to sort through this stuff, and sometimes we're just talking about hammering a nail. It's very straightforward, and we see it and we do it. But when it comes to our spiritual or mental or our well-being, our life, these are less, they're certainly experienced. And the Buddhism is all about experience, right? But how do you quantify it? How do you lay it down, dissect it, analyze it, right? The only way we have in our human condition to do that is with words and with expression, right? So this is Dharma. Do you see how Dharma is different from teaching? It's not just an authoritarian stance that says, this is this and therefore that. Now I give you this so you can see that. And do it. Teaching, quote unquote, has an authoritarian side to it that's really about putting things in order and describing things, right? But experiencing is always self and other, which is our duality of being human. So how do we experience not being attached to that duality when this is what we live in? I just wrote something about this morning, largely inspired by a question on Quora and my conversation with Mark yesterday, trying to define what this thing is that we're doing as we practice Buddhism. This method, what are we doing? And I was explaining that enlightenment, and the question was, what is enlightenment in Buddhism? I guess, strictly speaking, there's an age of enlightenment. There are writings on enlightenment. Some are Western, Greek in origin, Latin. Some are French. There's all sectors of culture throughout the ages that have dealt with what is enlightenment. And in religion as well. So it's not a unique topic to Buddhism. So it was an interesting question. And what I tried to put simply, and this is what I try to do, is distill largely complex things in the 84,000 or 80,000 volumes of Buddhist scholarship, so on. It can be overwhelming, and especially overwhelming when you're dealing with 2,600-year-old appeals to people whose capacity was completely different than ours. So, in simplification, just to put this in your cap, if you will find it useful, is that enlightenment isn't anywhere else than in our existence, our experience. So we're surrounded by it, and it is in us. It is us. It is through us, and it is our environs, which is a reflection of us. Enlightenment is all around and within each of us all the time. It just goes unnoticed. How can that be, right? But that's a human condition. We just don't notice it. Because, and this is the key, everything constantly streaming through our minds are the distractions of thisness. Because thisness is about permanence. I have this book. 4 words of attachment. 4 words of permanence. So what I was saying is that we are like fish furiously swimming through water to find water. And the Buddhist says to the fish, stop! And hopefully, if the fish pays attention to the Buddha saying stop, and actually stops, with all of the angst that entails, if the fish can stop long enough, it has to become apparent to the fish that, oh crap, I'm in water. My very existence is water. This is the Buddhist method. This is the Buddhist experience. I don't know, it just came to me in that way. I've always been kind of fond of analogies. It's in my DNA. And you know, maybe next week I'll look back on that little analogy and I'll think how wonderfully flawed it is and how I didn't say what I meant. But for the time being, I thought, that's pretty accurate. So, in light of all that gobbledygook of words, hopefully I made an impression upon you about what it is we're doing here and why it's not other. It's not somewhere else. It's not given to us. It's nothing we find. We simply reveal something that's already there. It's exactly what Buddhism is. So, Nichiren writes a little note to one of his students who happens to have just given birth to a little girl. An auspicious occasion, a new life, a new opportunity for enlightenment, for perception of enlightenment. See, even the language seems to put it off to something else, other. It's like the fish that doesn't know that it's in water and just desperately seeking it. Or for that matter, simply unaware. Right? So, he sends a little note to her to congratulate her, tell her how wonderful it is. And in doing so, he's going to invoke a lot of cultural little types and stories and things that to her and her family is going to have a lot of meaning. But to you and I, it's going to sound like so much weirdness. So be conscious. This is a really good example of skillful means. I'm going to congratulate this woman on her child, and I want her to understand how fortuitous and amazing and wonderful and precious it is, using the devices that inspire her, so that I can transmit to her not only the joy of the childbirth, but the joy through Buddhist eyes of the birth of a child. So it's a teaching, but it's a very subtle teaching, and it's done almost exclusively with skillful means. Ready? All right. The birth at Tsukimaro. I understand that your baby has been born. Congratulations. In particular, today is the 8th day of the month. Not only have you had your baby, but on such an auspicious day. The fulfillment of your wish is now complete, just like the tide at the high water mark or blossoming of the flowers in a spring meadow. Thus, I have wasted no time in giving her a name. Please call her Tsukimaro. Now, this is a great honor in the culture back then, to have an honorable, venerable sort as Nichiren, who also is your teacher, the votary of the Lotus Sutra, offering a name to your child. It's almost like it's a meritorious thing altogether. It's a huge gift, right? What is more, great Bodhisattva Hachiman, a deity of Japan, the sovereign deity of this country, just repeated myself, was born on the 8th day of the month, a 4th month. Shakyamuni Buddha the Lord of the teachings in this Saha world, was also born on the 8th day of the 4th month. Though the month is different, your baby girl was also born on the 8th day. So, numerology is always very big in Asia, so I can imagine the 8th day was very auspicious. She could well be the reincarnation of Shakyamuni Buddha or Hachiman. Here, Nichiren pays special attention to the profound perception of ultimate awakening that brings all sentient experience into the same continuum. By that, in parenthetical, what I'm saying is the reincarnation of Shakyamuni Buddha is a literary way of saying we all have the Buddha nature, and your daughter, since you're a student of Buddha nature and Buddhist method, is great fortune that she's born into your family at this time, so that she already is imbued with the seeking mind of Buddha, of looking for Buddha, being, in essence, Shakyamuni Buddha itself. Since I am an ordinary man, I have no way of knowing for certain, but I am convinced that the reason for this auspicious birth is that I gave you the protective agent, a talisman of representation of Buddha nature. How happy you, her parents, must be. In celebration, you have kindly sent me rice cakes, sake, and 1,000 coins. I have also reported this to the object of devotion, the Gohonzon, and the 10 demon daughters. When the Buddha was born in this world, there were 32 auspicious phenomena, as is recorded in the work called The Record of Wonders in the Book of Cho. Immediately following his birth, Shakyamuni Buddha took 7 steps, opened his mouth, and uttered the words expressed in 16 characters. Throughout heaven and earth, I alone am worthy of respect. The threefold world is a place of suffering from which I will save all living beings. End quote. Tsukimaro must have chanted Namu Myoho Renge Kyo with her very first cry at birth. The Lotus Sutra speaks of the true aspect of all phenomena. Tendai said, voices do the Buddha's work. This is also what I think. The deaf cannot hear thunder, and the blind cannot see the light or the sun and moon. But I am quite certain that the 10 demon daughters must be together side by side, giving the baby her first bath and watching over her growth. Let me heartily congratulate you. I can imagine your joy. I have respectfully reported this to the 10 demon daughters and to the sun goddess. I am too excited to write any more. I will be writing you again soon. So a very ebullient Nichiren talking to this follower. In the background, there's a talk of the fortune child. That's a name, a rhetoric given to children born into families or to parents or parent that are practicing the ultimate form of Buddhist method, the chanting Namu Myoho Renge Kyo with the Gohonzon is a tremendously fortuitous event. It's rare. Not everybody encounters it. And for a child to be born into that environment, they call a fortune child. They start with their feet running, right? So, what else is interesting in here? Good omens, a sutra, all of it I leave to your future scholarship. You can research all of those little skillful means. I think the most important thing to understand, though, is how in being a bodhisattva to his students, in enabling them to see the Buddhist connection in all of their wondrous experiences in life, he's helping them to understand, helping them to inculcate this new reality, this new perception, this new experience into everything, while at the same time honoring tremendously their effort in birthing a child. still to this day. Not in some ways, people, I have a friend who works in birthing, and natural birthing, those kind of things. And she would say, well, it's quite a simple thing. But even in saying that, she would also recognize that there are many, 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 many intricacies to it happening simply. It's always kind of a gift of sorts when things go well in anything, but certainly in bringing new life into the world's, our samsaric existence, right? Anyway, I hope that was entertaining. It's a little break from all that seriousness we've been dealing with. And there'll be some more of that, and we'll get into some deep stuff as well. But there's time for everything. So again, shout out to Mark. Thanks for coming by. Any of you who want to come by the school, who can. I just supremely enjoy the close, intimate sharing of experience. So you're always invited, please. Even if I stumble on the phone, because I'm getting a little old, and sometimes I'm not quite sure what to. Especially lately with the robocalls and everything else happening on telephones, you just never know what to expect when you pick up the phone. So don't let my little scattered mind deter you, please, because I genuinely want to meet all of you. And this is the closest I can get. That's fine. I love it. Make comments. Let me know what you think. I just appreciate you. Thank you. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. See you soon.